Well, good day everybody. Today I'm going to be showing you how to grow the best tomatoes at home. I've been growing tomatoes for the past couple of years with great success using these methods. Now I've watched many other YouTube videos, and thanks to our great gardening community, I've learned each of these methods. Some I've gathered from this video or that video, and what I want to do is take all the knowledge that I have and compress it and put it into this video for you guys. So let me start by showing you some pictures or clips of tomatoes that I grew last year. Number one, you got to start off with a good soil because tomatoes are heavy feeders and they require a certain pH. Tomatoes actually require a pH of around 6, and that's slightly acidic. Chances are that if you get your soil for your beds or your pots, if you buy your soil from a big box store and you get it in bags, chances are the pH of that is just fine. But bear in mind that the pH of your soil can change over time, especially if you're watering with municipal water, which tends to be alkaline. So if you're not sure of the pH of your soil, you may want to send a sample off to get it tested or buy yourself a pH meter. If the pH of your soil is not at the correct levels, you may still get good plant growth, but your fruit will rot at the bottom. This is called blossom end rot. You can lower the pH of your soil, make it more acidic, by adding plenty of organic matter such as compost and or amending it with peat moss. I do not recommend the use of sulfur-based amendments as they only lower the pH for a short period of time and therefore require several applications. You also want to make sure that your soil does retain water but also has a lightness, a fluffiness to it, like peat moss or cocoa coir would add to it. Because you want the soil to be aerated, you want it to hold water, but you also want it to drain properly. Now, getting your tomato plants, it's best to start your own tomatoes from cuttings or seeds and a good organic potting mix. This will ensure that your tomatoes get the best nutrition from early on and reduce the risk of transplant shock. I start my seeds indoors about 6 to 8 weeks before I plan to plant them outside. If this is not an option, or you have a longer growing season than I do, you may choose to purchase your tomato plants from a nursery, a big box store, or directly sow your tomato seeds in your garden. Number 3, planting your tomatoes. Tomatoes like full sun, so be sure to choose a sunny location. Always plant your tomatoes deep. Tomatoes will grow a massive root system and grow roots all along the stem. So always take advantage of that by planting them deep. Alternatively, you can even lay them on their side and cover 8 inches to a foot of the stem, and the plant will actually curl up and start growing vertically towards the sun, and you can bury the plant basically either at an angle or some people do completely sideways in the ground, and they will grow a massive root system, and this makes a stronger plant. Now be sure to trim away and remove leaves from the portion of the stem that you bury under the soil. Number 4, watering your tomatoes. Be sure not to let your tomatoes dry out. It's very important, especially to prevent things like nutrient deficiencies and blossom end rot. You want to make sure that you water them deep, especially if you planted them deep. If you're away from home for long periods of time, you may want to make sure that you set up an automated watering system, an irrigation system of some sort. 5. Mulch your tomatoes. Mulching will help to ensure that your soil doesn't dry out so quickly, and you'll need to water less frequently. Mulching can also help to prevent blight, a fungal disease which comes from the soil. Exposed soil can come in contact with the plant leaves when water or rain splashes the soil up onto the leaves. Mulch helps to prevent this. Also, mulch will attract worms, especially worms that like to stay near the surface of the soil, And since it's not drying out, the worms can thrive. Also, beneficial bacteria and fungi will thrive because the mulch is keeping the life and the moisture in the soil. 6. Prune your tomatoes. When you purchase your tomatoes or seeds, be sure to check the label to find out if your tomatoes are determinate or indeterminate. Indeterminate plants will continue to grow and produce fruit all season long until they are killed off by disease or frost. As long as conditions are favorable, they will continue to grow and produce. Determinate plants will grow to a genetically predetermined size, produce their crop, and then die off. Therefore, you want to take this into consideration when deciding how to prune your tomato plants. For determinate tomatoes, letting them bush out will get you a larger crop. Therefore, only prune back what is necessary to keep good airflow to the center of the plant. Thus, I prune any suckers that grow inward towards the center. For indeterminate tomatoes, you have a few options. You can let them bush out a little and they will produce big, healthy tomatoes as long as you plant them deep in good soil and feed them well. Alternatively, you can prune them back to a single stem. The single stem will grow very thick and strong, and the fruit should be larger as well. This method is especially useful for small space or square foot growing spaces. It's important to note that pruning determinate tomatoes back to a single stem will not get you any larger fruit. Therefore, it would be a waste to use this method on determinate plants. Indeterminate plants that are pruned to a single stem may be planted 12 to 18 inches apart. I prefer 18 inches to give myself more space. Plants that are allowed to bush may be planted 3 to 5 feet apart, depending on how much you plan on letting them bush out. 7. Feeding your tomatoes. Tomatoes are heavy feeders. However, if you start with good soil that is amended with lots of organic matter, compost, and the correct pH, you should be okay. I like to side dress my tomatoes with worm castings and coffee grounds. You may choose to use an all-purpose organic fertilizer as well. Applications of compost tea every third watering will definitely be preferred. However, if you don't have compost tea, don't sweat it. You can still grow fantastic tomatoes organically. 8. Deterring pests and fungus. Keep a lookout for aphids and other pests. Frequently check the stems and undersides of the leaves. I like to use an organic 3-in-1 insecticide and fungicide. Neem oil works great. If you suspect pests or a fungus, spray the stems and leaves on both the bottom and the top. To deter birds from pecking your tomatoes, simply provide a water source for them nearby. Be sure to keep your tomatoes off the ground by using a tomato cage or trellis of some sort. There are many options. Crop rotation is recommended, especially for tomatoes. What happens if you don't rotate your tomatoes and plant them in different areas of the garden is that certain fungi or other diseases that tomatoes are prone to could potentially build up in the soil. You may be able to get away with planting your tomatoes in the same space for a few years, especially if you amend your soil with worm castings, which can help to fight disease. Worm castings add healthy bacteria to the soil. The healthy bacteria can certainly help to fight disease. In fact, I am currently running an experiment to see how many years I can get away with planting my tomatoes in this raised bed by simply amending the soil each year with a very heavy application of worm castings. I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to grow fantastic tomatoes at home. If I missed anything, please leave it in the comments down below and join the discussion. It'd really help me out if you can share this video and give it a thumbs up. Thanks so much for joining me. Have a great day.